I'm Sam. I live in a small rural town in New Zealand, and this is the story about how I turned my backyard into a backyard farm. I thought people might like to see what kind of crazy shenanigans I get up to in my backyard farm here in New Zealand, in a small town where nothing has really changed that much over time, and it's just a bit of a unique perspective on the genre right now, I suppose one could say. Well, how I started farming in my backyard was with tiny, tiny little baby steps that just built one on top of the other as I got results that I wasn't expecting. So it really started with me listening to podcasts and listening to audiobooks at the job I was doing at the time and thinking to myself, well, that's really interesting. And that got to a point where I couldn't really cram anything more into my brain. I needed to go and actually do what I was learning to put it into practice. So I decided to start very first by managing my lawn as a pasture, which I had done in the past, not with my lawn, but as a pasture because I used to have horses. So that was like an easy in. I already knew about that, so that's where I started, and it worked really well. And I thought, I wonder what else might work really well. So I started to dig into the old raised garden beds that were kicking around the back of the property and applying these things I was learning, and that worked really well too. And I thought, hey, there is something here, and then it gets a bit addictive. It's a very fulfilling thing to do. So I just one thing after the other, and now we have a full-on backyard farm.
I woke up in a king-size bed, tick of a clock, a stranger to my left. The neighbors gave me a side eye, like I was blind.
So did I know what I was doing before I started doing this? Well, to a certain extent, I did. I have had animals, horses, cows, sheep, goats, chickens in the past. We always had chickens when I was growing up and gardens when I was growing up. And I have worked in the horticulture industry. So yeah, I had a base level of knowledge of outdoor things, growing things, taking care of animals. But in terms of applying really, scientific, I suppose, but these new to me, regenerative agriculture principles, soil health principles, how to really make an ecological system thrive, I was learning about that. And putting those principles into practice on top of that knowledge I already had. So variable. That is what I love about the farming, is anything can happen, and one season is not going to be same as the next, one year is not going to be the same as the next, but there are daily tasks. I'm not going to lie about that. It is not a hobby that you can pick up and put down when you feel like it. You have to be there, committed every single day if you want to get the results.
9 to 5 was my dad's advice. Don't think twice, I want the luxury life. My beauty can lose it, I'll use it. I'll take what I want. Oh yeah. A whole lot of ticket, not enough time.
What really got me into it in a dedicated way was I spent several years working in the horticulture industry in commercial apple orchards. And initially it was just going to be, it's my industry here where I live, it is sort of the main employer and it's what we do here. We grow apples and kiwi fruit and things like that. But it was an easy thing to just go and do, spend some time figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, having spent a decade before that doing something completely different. And while I was out there working with the trees, working with the fruit, working with the people, I thought, well, this is actually an incredibly fulfilling thing to do, grow food for people. So I came to my backyard farm more from a larger commercial perspective and how things are pushing forward commercially. they're really trying here in New Zealand to do things better and more ecologically friendly. So I was seeing all of those things happen, and I mean, it's not perfect, but that's the direction they're heading in. And that was really what gave me the push, as I was learning about this stuff from my work, but also from all the extra things I was learning about, because I'm a giant nerd and I can't just stop with one small bit of information. I need the full story. So as I was getting that full story, it led me into starting this little farm in my backyard to apply what I was learning, and it was just so fulfilling, and the food was so delicious that I just don't think I could stop even if I wanted to, which I don't.
Slow traffic caused me stress. Show no panic, I'm just born in a dress. And I know that I'm older, I'm done. I'll do what I want.
So what I get out of all of my hard work in my little backyard farm is, well, it's so many things, but I guess for me, one of the drivers for me being a nerd is I love learning about something and going, that's a fascinating idea, then going out and applying it, and you don't get the answer for a while. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years before you find out if that information that you heard or read about is actually true or is going to work for you. But in most cases, when I've gone and applied something that I've learned about and it made sense to me at the time, I have seen that actually pan out. And an example of that is I heard in multiple places, on multiple podcasts and in books, that if your plants are really, really healthy, they will not suffer from severe insect pest pressure. So you can just go ahead and grow your plants and the bugs aren't going to gobble them up. And I was like, nah. That's not possible. Bugs are going to eat plants, it's what they do. But I thought, all right, well, I'm going to give it a go. And it's true. In my situation here, it's taken, I would say, 3 years of applying many, many principles to get to that point where I now no longer am concerned at all about pests on my plants, because they do not cause any kind of level of damage where I don't get to harvest. So that's very fulfilling. That fulfills the knowledge-seeking and gaining answers part of me as a person. But on a more emotional level, taking logic and reasoning out of the picture, it's just incredibly beautiful and fulfilling to go outside into a space that you are guiding and assisting to grow into something amazing, which is what ecological gardening and farming is all about. You're helping that system. You're not going in and imposing your will upon it. So when you get to see that sort of bloom before your eyes, your efforts that you're putting in are being paid back to you in just a vibrant system with bugs and animals and everything happening, and the best food that you will ever taste will come out of your own space with your own 2 hands doing the work. Because no commercial system having to sell you food for money is going to be able to put into that food what you can put into your own food. It's just not really possible to buy love. And what you're getting back out of your garden is all that love that you put in coming back to you as just phenomenal food, whether that is the eggs that your chickens are laying because you're caring for them so well, whether it is the tomatoes, the peppers, the lettuce, whatever you're growing. You just can't get better food than you get from your own garden.
Slow traffic caused me stress. Show no panic, I'm just born in a dress. And I know that I'm older, I'm done. I'll do what I want.
There is a movement of sort of like back to basics, back to roots at the moment that I'm seeing, and I think it's really cool. For me, I am sort of going back to my roots in a way, but in a way I never left my roots in the first place. So I live in a very small town. It's bigger now than it used to be when I was growing up. But it's a small rural country town, sort of like, what do they call it, a one-horse town. so to speak. And we always did all of these things that are trendy now, that people are learning about now. But you know, my parents always had chickens, they always had gardens and fruit trees, and my mother baked our bread and sewed our clothes, and that was all just how we lived. And it was, you don't really think about it when you're a kid, but all of those skills and that knowledge was passed to me, even whether I wanted to know how to bake bread or can or not, which you don't really want to do when you're 10, but you just have to. But I sort of moved on and thought, oh, well, that's all just irrelevant now. It's the modern world, and off I go to live my life. But getting older and seeing how the world is going, and it's nice to come back to those skills and those ways of being. And now I understand why my parents had chickens and gardens and baked bread, because it is a great way to live, and it's very fulfilling, and it just takes you also growing up and becoming a real adult to realize that maybe your parents and grandparents were right all along. Well, how I feel about what I have got happening here, what I have achieved over these years of really putting effort and time into it, I'm really excited and fulfilled and happy, and just can't wait to see what more can be achieved with applying these ecological principles out there in the garden. And the fulfillment of being able to put food on the table for my family that I have grown myself, like maybe 50% of the meal, 75% of the meal, occasionally 100% of the meal. It's just incredibly satisfying and tastes amazing. And that the taste, the nutrition of the food is one of the driving factors for me, because you just cannot buy that food. It is essentially priceless. And I can bring that to my family by just going out to the garden and starting right where I was with what I had, and I can bring this gift to the people that I love, and that is an incredible thing to do.